Return by Death is supposed to save people. Every time Subaru dies, he gets another chance. Another chance to protect the people he loves. So why does it feel like every season pushes him further away from those same people? At first, I thought that was simply the cost of carrying a secret nobody else could ever understand. But then, season 4 made me notice something I couldn't ignore. None of these characters remember Subaru's deaths, yet every one of them slowly loses a different version of him. Emilia, Beatrice, Ram, Julius, they all pay a price for memories they never had. That shouldn't be possible, right? So I went back through the entire arc looking for a pattern, and by the end of this video, I want to answer two questions. Who is actually affected by Return by Death? And exactly how does it change every one of Subaru's most important relationships? Before I started working on this video, I thought I already understood why Return by Death was so tragic. Subaru remembers everything and nobody else does. That's the curse. But the more I thought about it, the less that explanation felt complete. I kept coming back to Emilia, and not because she remembers the loops, she doesn't, but because somehow she's still forced to live with the consequences of them. Think about it for a second. As far as Emilia knows, her relationship with Subaru moves in one straight line. One convo leads to the next, one memory builds on another. That's how relationships are supposed to work. Subaru isn't living that same relationship. He's carrying convos Emilia never had. He's remembering promises that, to her, were never made. Sometimes he apologizes and Emilia doesn't even know what he's apologizing for. Sometimes he throws himself into danger without hesitation, and she has no idea why he's acting like her life means that much to him. They are standing in the same place, saying the same words, but they are not having the same conversation. And that was the moment everything started feeling different to me. Because if Subaru is carrying a completely different version of their relationship, then maybe Return by Death isn't just changing Subaru, maybe it's quietly changing the relationship itself. And once that idea got stuck in my head, I couldn't stop seeing it. And not just with Emilia. With Beatrice, with Ram, even Julius. Most of us already knew they suffered. What I couldn't shake was that each relationship seemed to be breaking in a completely different way, and Emilia was where I wanted to start. Okay, so while I was writing this video, I kept coming back to Emilia. Not because she had the strongest scene, but because she had the expression I couldn't stop thinking about. It happens at the end of episode 12, right after Subaru finally tells everyone he has lost his memories. Subaru is standing right in front of her, and for a second she looks at him like something doesn't feel right. I completely missed it the first time I watched the episode. It only stood out once I already had this investigation in my head. So I went back and watched it again. Then I started asking myself what Emilia was actually reacting to. She doesn't know about Return by Death or why Subaru suddenly acts differently. From her perspective, there shouldn't be any reason for him to feel so distant. But he does. Then I remembered something else. A little later, Subaru refuses to explain what's really going on. Ram immediately questions him, but Emilia doesn't. She steps in for him. And that scene made me stop thinking this was about trust. Emilia already trusts Subaru. The real problem is that she never gets to understand why he keeps changing. She sees the version of Subaru standing in front of her and never sees everything that happened before he got there. Earlier in the arc, when Subaru loses his memories for the first time, another moment stood out to me. Emilia slaps herself just to stay composed. She's trying to reach someone who suddenly can't recognize her anymore. And that's when I finally had an answer. At the beginning of this video, I asked what Return by Death actually takes from the people around Subaru. I don't think it takes Emilia's trust. I think it takes her chance to ever understand why Subaru becomes a different person from one moment to the next. She keeps trying to catch up without ever knowing what she's trying to catch up to. And because Beatrice doesn't just feel that something is wrong, she notices it almost immediately. After Emilia, I thought I was starting to understand the pattern. Then I got to Beatrice, and honestly I ended up replaying one scene over and over again. It's the moment right after Subaru finally admits he has lost his memories. Again. Everyone reacts in their own way. But I couldn't stop looking at Beatrice. I couldn't figure out what was bothering me about her expression. It looked like she already knew she couldn't solve it. I kept wondering why that feeling stayed with me. Later in the arc, Subaru reads Meili's Book of the Dead and comes back completely shaken. I found myself thinking about Beatrice again. She doesn't need anyone to explain that something happened. She already knows. She's watching someone she cares about fall apart, and all she can really do is stay beside him. That's when I stopped comparing her to Emilia. Emilia is trying to understand Subaru. Beatrice already knows he's hurting. Her problem is different. She can see exactly what's happening. Taking any of it away is the one thing she can't do. And I think that's what Return by Death quietly takes from Beatrice. If anything, she's one of the first people who notices. What it takes is her ability to help the person she's watching disappear. That's a horrible position to be in. Close enough to see everything, but not close enough to carry any of it for them. But what about Ram? The more I worked on this video, the more one question kept bothering me. When did Ram start relying on Subaru this much? Because if you only listen to what she says, it almost sounds like she barely trusts him. She's blunt, she teases him, and she's usually the first person to point out when he's being an idiot. But then I started paying less attention to what Ram says and more attention to what she expects. Back at the mansion, she naturally assumes Subaru will help with Ram. During the journey to the tower, she keeps treating him like someone who's supposed to figure things out. Even inside the tower, that expectation never really disappears. It doesn't feel dramatic while you're watching it. It just slowly becomes normal, which is why the memory loss scene suddenly feels so different. Subaru tells everyone he has forgotten everything. Then Ram speaks with him alone. At first, it looks like she's trying to prove he's lying. But the more I watched it, the less I believed that was the point. It wasn't that she was trying to expose Subaru. She was trying to find the Subaru she has been depending on this whole time. One memory and one sign that he's still there. And when she can't find it, that's when everything she's been quietly building around him starts to fall apart. I don't think Season 4 suddenly made Ram trust Subaru. I think it finally showed us how much she already did. She never said it. She had just quietly started treating Subaru like the one person who would always find a way. Maybe that's why her reaction feels so different from everyone else's. She isn't just losing the Subaru standing in front of her, but the future she had already built around him is falling apart at the same time. And I think that's what Return by Death quietly takes from Ram. Not her trust, the certainty that Subaru will always be able to save the people she can't. Then I started thinking about Julius, because his situation is different from everyone else's in this video. Everyone else loses something because of Subaru's curse. Julius, however, was already losing something before Subaru's memory even disappeared. There was one reaction I couldn't stop thinking about. It happens after Subaru loses his memories. There is a moment where he covers his mouth. He looks like he's about to be sick. The first time I watched it, I thought he was just overwhelmed. But the more I looked at it, the less that explanation felt right. Because everyone else is reacting to Subaru. Julius almost looks like something else is happening to him entirely. Then I remembered something. Julius already knows what it's like to be forgotten. He already knows what it feels like to stand in front of people knowing the person they remember doesn't exist anymore. That's why this scene feels so different. Julius is watching someone else step onto the same island he was forced onto, and Subaru doesn't even realize he's there yet. And that's when I finally understood his reaction. Earlier in the season, Subaru was the only person who still knew exactly who Julius was. Not his name, but everything they had already been through together. Then in one moment, that disappears too. Julius would have to introduce himself again, and not to a stranger, to his teammate. Return by Death didn't take Julius's identity, Gluttony already did that. What it takes is the last person who still remembered the version of himself he had fought so hard to rebuild. That's why his reaction feels different from everyone else's. He's watching the same thing happen to someone else in real time. And that's when I realized something. Return by Death never only belonged to Subaru. Every person closest to him was carrying a different version of it. None of them had a name for what it was doing to them. So I started this investigation thinking Return by Death was Subaru's burden. That felt obvious. He is the one who remembers. He is the one who carries every death forward while everyone else gets to forget. But the more I watched Season 4, the less that felt complete. 4 people, 4 completely different versions of the same loss. None of them caused by remembering a single death. That's what I kept coming back to at the end of all this. Return by Death doesn't just cost Subaru, it distributes itself. It finds the thing each person closest to him was quietly depending on and removes it. Not all at once, just gradually, across an arc, until season 4 makes it impossible to ignore. And none of them have a name for what's happening to them. That's the part that stays with me. If this changed how you see any of these relationships, drop it in the comments. I want to know which chapter hit differently for you. And if you want to go deeper on Julius or Ram specifically, those videos are coming. Links will be on the screen when they are up. Other than that, I have full season 4 playlist below. Okay, see you in the next video.